Let me show you something worth noticing. There's a kind of person who tracks every dollar, not because they're broke, not because they're anxious, but because they're good at it. They built a system, they optimized it, they check it daily, sometimes twice, and over time, without realizing it, they've turned money into a full-time hobby they never wanted. You'll find them in spreadsheets at midnight, rebalancing portfolios that don't need rebalancing, comparing high-yield savings rates that differ by 0.03%. They're not doing this because it matters. They're doing it because they can. And that distinction, the one between what's useful and what's possible, that's where things start to go wrong. It begins innocently. You learn how money works. You set up accounts, automate savings, track net worth. You feel competent, and competence feels good, especially if you spent years feeling like you didn't understand this stuff. So you keep going. You add another column to the spreadsheet. You discover a new optimization. You find a forum where people talk about tax loss harvesting like it's a sport. And slowly, without noticing, you've turned a tool into a task. Here's what happens. The more you manage your money, the more you believe it needs managing. Every decision starts to feel significant. Should you move $5,000 from this account to that one? Should you adjust your asset allocation by 2%? Should you switch credit cards for a slightly better reward structure? None of these questions are wrong, but they're also not worth the mental real estate they're taking up. And yet, you can't stop asking them because you've trained yourself to believe that attention equals results. The strange part is, this doesn't come from insecurity. It comes from capability. People who are bad with money don't overmanage it. They avoid it. But people who are good with it, who understand it, who've built systems that actually work, they're the ones who start tinkering. Because if you're smart enough to optimize, you're also smart enough to believe that more optimization must be better. And that logic, which works in so many areas of life, quietly breaks down here. There's a term in engineering called gold plating. It's when you keep improving something past the point where improvements matter. You add features nobody asked for. You polish details that don't affect function. You do it because you can, because it's interesting, because it feels productive. And the result is something that's technically better, but functionally no different. Except now, it's fragile, complex, and exhausting to maintain. That's what happens with money. You build a financial system that works, then you keep building. You add rules, exceptions, tracking mechanisms, conditional logic. You monitor things that don't need monitoring. You optimize things that were already optimized. And eventually, your financial life isn't simpler or more secure, it's just more complicated. You've turned something that should run in the background into something that demands constant attention, and the cost isn't just time. It's the mental space you've handed over to something that doesn't deserve it. Because here's the thing. Past a certain point, more financial management doesn't increase wealth. It just increases the feeling of control. And those two things are easy to confuse. When you check your portfolio every day, you're not making better decisions. You're just reminding yourself that you're paying attention. When you rebalance quarterly instead of annually, you're not improving returns, you're satisfying the urge to do something. The actions feel meaningful because they require effort and knowledge. But meaningful and effective aren't the same. And the cost isn't obvious. It's not like you're losing money. You're probably doing fine, maybe better than fine. but you're also spending hours every week thinking about decisions that don't matter. You're running scenarios in your head while you're supposed to be doing something else. You're comparing options that are functionally identical. You're living inside a system you built to make life easier. But now the system is running you. There's a certain kind of exhaustion that comes from this. It's not the exhaustion of struggle. It's the exhaustion of maintenance, of knowing that if you stop paying attention, even for a little while, things might drift. Except they won't. Or if they do, it won't matter. But you've trained yourself to believe that it will because you've made financial management part of your identity. You're the person who understands this stuff, who stays on top of it, who doesn't let things slide, and that identity, once it's formed, becomes hard to let go of. Here's what nobody tells you. The best financial decisions are often the ones you make once and then forget about. Set up automatic contributions. Choose a low-cost index fund. Don't touch it. That's it. That's the whole strategy. Everything else, all the monitoring and adjusting and rebalancing and second-guessing, most of that is theater. It's something to do, so you feel like you're doing something. And if you're smart, if you're capable, if you're the kind of person who likes solving problems, that theater is incredibly seductive. You start to notice this when you talk to people who are genuinely wealthy, not rich from optimizing, rich from time, from building something, from getting lucky, from holding assets for decades without thinking about them much. And what's striking is how little they manage their money. They're not checking portfolios, they're not rebalancing, they're not hunting for the best savings rate. They set things up, maybe they talk to someone once a year, and then they go live their lives. And that simplicity, that absence of constant involvement, that's not laziness, that's clarity. They understand that money is a tool, not a game, and tools don't require daily maintenance. But if you've built your life around being competent with money, if that's part of how you prove to yourself that you're responsible and intelligent and in control, then stepping back feels dangerous. It feels like you're letting things slip, like you're becoming one of those people who doesn't pay attention. And so you keep managing, keep optimizing, keep checking, because stopping would mean admitting that most of what you've been doing didn't need to be done. And maybe that's the real cost. Not the time, not the mental energy, but the opportunity cost of what you could have been thinking about instead. The projects you didn't start because your mind was occupied. The relationships you didn't invest in because you were investing in spreadsheets. The boredom you didn't sit with because you filled it with portfolio analysis. You can't get that back. And the returns on what you were doing instead, on all that careful management, they're not nothing, but they're small. Smaller than the story you've been telling yourself about why it matters. There's a version of financial competence that's quiet, that makes a few good decisions early and then lets time do the work. That doesn't confuse activity with progress. That understands the difference between what's worth paying attention to and what just feels worth paying attention to. And getting to that version, if you're someone who spent years in the other mode, it's not easy, because it requires letting go of something that's been working, or at least something that feels like it's been working. But maybe it's worth asking, not whether you're managing your money well, you probably are, but whether the way you're managing it is worth what it's taking from you. Whether the system you built is serving you or whether you're serving it. Whether you're optimizing for results or just optimizing because that's what you know how to do. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next.